we're going to look at two very important skills you need to have for your speaking. These skills specifically have to do with the way you produce the words you are saying. Whether you are speaking in a live event or online, where technology plays a huge role, you want to always be speaking as clearly as you can. People are listening. A number of years ago, I was in an international speech contest with 9 other competitors. We wore wireless lapel mics so that the room of 150 people could hear us. Even with the mics, after the contest was finished and people were preparing to leave, one gentleman said to me, "Of all the competitors who spoke tonight, you were the only one I could completely understand." Wow, I have to say, he really surprised me. I kind of wish he'd been one of the judges too. I mean, I try to speak clearly, but it was a contest, nerves, that sort of thing, so you never really know. But in the end, even if I hadn't nailed all of the contest elements to win or anything, I have to say I really appreciated his comment because it validated that I'd been successful, at least in that part of my delivery. I'd been clear. And even if I hadn't won the judges over with my speech, at least I knew they had understood me. And the reason I share this story is that while I wasn't speaking online at the time, I was speaking through a microphone. You could find yourself in the same situation, and you certainly will if you're speaking online. Clarity matters. People notice. So what's involved with speaking clearly? Enunciation and articulation. First, we're going to look at their definitions, and then we're going to put them together in action. Okay, so first of all, enunciation. It means to say or pronounce words clearly. Articulation, well, that word shows up different ways. For our purposes, in the sense we're going to talk about it, articulation is the ability to move the tongue, lips, teeth, and jaw to produce the sounds of the words that you're saying. Your articulation works with your air that you're putting through your mouth to speak. If you don't have enough air, it's going to take a lot more work to articulate. How do these two words, enunciation and articulation, relate to each other? I'm so glad you asked. Here's where the two of them meet. If you are not articulating well, you end up with poor enunciation. To be more specific, if you have poor enunciation, you may not be saying the consonants or vowels in words well, or even at all, or not saying all of the syllables. Said it in a different way, if you have poor enunciation, you may not be articulating the consonants or vowels in words well, or at all. What's the result? Well, you end up slurring words together, so there is no separation between them. Or mumbling, which is speaking in a quiet and indistinct way, not clear. Or you may be trailing off at the ends of sentences, and what I mean is getting softer, too soft at the end. How do you improve your enunciation so that you are speaking with clarity, so that your listeners will be able to understand you? First, you need to be aware of the need for clear speech, which, well, hopefully this video is helping you with. Second, you need to pay attention to how you articulate your words. Okay, but then what? How do you improve your articulation and thus your enunciation? You have to give more attention to the sounds that make up the words you are saying. And what I mean by this is the vowels, the consonants, and the syllables of the words. So when you say them, they come out as they're supposed to. As I listen to people talking and speaking all over, it seems to me that often it's the consonants that are the sounds that get dropped when the speaker isn't enunciating well. If you do this, you will sound like you're mumbling or you're slurring them together, and that can be really hard to understand. An example could be, on Saturday, would you go down to the basement and put some laundry in the machine? That may be a bit of an exaggeration or just sound kind of odd, because I actually have trouble not saying consonants. But that sentence should really sound like this. On Saturday, would you go down to the basement and put some laundry in the machine? On Saturday, would you go down to the basement and put some laundry in the machine? On Saturday, Would you go down to the basement and put some laundry in the machine? Now what did I do? I slowed down a bit and I gave the consonants a bit more air to bring them out more loudly, and I took a little more time on the vowels. It takes putting more energy into those sounds and taking your time to produce them. And that is one thing I just can't stress enough. Take your time speaking. Speaking quickly doesn't mean necessarily that you're speaking well. Now, as you go through your day, try listening to how you speak and note if some of the words come out a little mumbled or glossed over. Try saying them more slowly. Overemphasize the consonants. If it's a vowel, give it a bit more time. When I started to develop my own public speaking, I realized there were a lot of similarities to music and trumpet playing and learning it. And one of the similarities is articulation of the sounds produced on the trumpet. And when I was learning certain skills that allowed me to make notes come out very quickly, I learned that I had to coordinate my tongue and my teeth, the back of my throat, and how I used my air. Little air meant I had a lot of trouble doing those notes. So I had to go at it very slowly to develop the coordination. I brought my music knowledge and trumpet into my speaking. I brought that experience in. And I found that the same is true for articulation. When there's a hard word to say, I had to slow down and make it come out properly, bringing those sounds out. It takes time to get your mouth around it, to give your tongue time to develop the skill, whether it's the back of the throat or closer to the front. Ultimately, you want to say, Saturday, would you, the basement, and put on laundry. And one of my favorite ideas is, take your time and you'll go faster. I wrote that to myself many years ago. Once you get better at it, you'll be able to go faster. Now, you don't want to sound like a robot, of course, but you need to take time in order to get that skill working for you. Basically, getting your mouth around it is one way of thinking about it. You want to take your time with it. So how do you practice? Well, one way is to read a paragraph of text and make sure all the sounds come out clearly. Record yourself if you can, then listen to how you sound. Are you saying the words correctly, fully? All the consonants and vowels? All of the syllables that should be said? If you have a word that you slur over, stop. Say it a few times, a little more slowly. For example, how you articulate the... Did you hear me? I had trouble with that word. Articulate. Articulate. Okay, now back into context. How you articulate will determine how you enunciate. Notice I paused right before trying to say that word that was giving me trouble. Now I'm going to repeat the instruction I gave earlier as an example paragraph. One way is to read a paragraph of text and make sure all the sounds come out clearly. Record yourself if you can. Then listen to how you sound. Are you saying the words correctly, fully? All the consonants and vowels? All of the syllables that should be said? When you do this, take it slow at first, then you can pick up the speed, but watch that you still produce all of the sounds of each word. I know it sounds a little funny, that speed, but that's okay. You can also try working on tongue twisters. They'll definitely give you a workout on your enunciation. I hope that helps you. The thing with clear articulation, which you now know produces good enunciation, is that you can make it a habit. In other training that I've conducted, I talk about the musician's mindset, and that's what I've touched on here, really. Musicians practice intently to develop their skills, and professionals in any discipline take their time and they place value on that time spent developing the skills they need. As a speaker, if you want to sound professional, you need to be understood, at least as well as possible. So I put this challenge to you. Listen to yourself. Improve through practice that which needs improving in your speaking. And get feedback. And not just from people who hear you regularly. They know how you sound. The last one is excel at this aspect of speaking with clarity. I'd like to share a quote with you that I think can be kind of relevant for us here. It's by Donald Miller, the author of a book called Building a Story Brand. Clarify your message so your customers will listen. He says, if you confuse, you lose. It may take time to coordinate your articulation so you enunciate well, but it will be well worth the effort. Your listeners will appreciate they can understand you, and that will help you connect with them.